And welcome back to The Price of Business. I am Chris Kelso. Our last and greatest guest we have coming up right now is Erica Harris. She's a partner in Sussman Godfrey LLP, one of the super lawyers in town. Erica, how you doing?
Very well. Thank you, Chris.
You know, for all those first-time listeners, let us know a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, as you said, I'm a partner with the law firm of Sussman Godfrey. We are a litigation boutique. We have 105 lawyers who do nothing but try cases and represent individuals and corporations who either need to sue to get redress or have been sued. And that includes court, arbitration, anything arising out of the litigation context, and with a focus on the commercial context, anything rising out of business disputes, that's what we handle.
Now, you have offices in Houston and New York and Los Angeles and Seattle. Hopefully I didn't miss one right there. You know, for all those listeners out there, what does litigation technically mean? Because a lot of times people hear about, you know, you've got a civil trial going on or we're going to go to litigation, et cetera, et cetera. Describe a little bit of that process for all the average individuals that are listening right now.
Well, you did get our offices correct, and we do handle cases around the nation. Litigation is any time you need to obtain financial redress usually, but it can be injunctive relief. You need to stop somebody from stealing your name, or someone has breached a contract that you entered into and you need a solution. The only way, legal way, to get redress in those situations is to use our court system, or if your contract provides for a different mechanism, most often called arbitration, then you litigate in those two forums to try to get whatever redress you need.
Now, you know, I got a question. Here's a good question for me as just a standard individual. I'm in the real estate industry, and so one of the things we always say in our real estate contracts is the first thing you can do to get redress is we have a mediation set up in a contract, for example. However, that does not limit somebody at that point, if mediation doesn't work out, to go forward and obviously pursue some type of avenue to get compensation. And that's, I think, a big confusion sometimes people have is what a contract means and what you can actually do after a contract. I don't know if you can talk maybe some generalities about that.
Sure. So the lawyers who draft contracts will put in all sorts of different mechanisms for resolving a dispute that arises out of the business arrangement underlying the contract. And sometimes they do specify mediation, which is not binding. It's simply it basically is a mechanism so that if the parties cannot reach resolution just talking amongst themselves and negotiating on their own, then they will often engage lawyers like myself to represent them and go before a third party who is often an ex-judge, but sometimes just an ex-lawyer who specializes in trying to help parties who are unhappy with each other, they're in a dispute, reach a resolution, a negotiated resolution. It's not binding. You simply go, you present your arguments to the third party, and the third party then speaks with each side explaining, look, you know, this is a really strong part of your case, but this is not so strong, and so if you don't work out this negotiated resolution and you have to either go to court or to arbitration to get what you want, you may lose. And so it's better for you to work out a negotiated agreement here with me, the third-party facilitator. And so that's what mediation is. And you are right, it does not preclude anyone from saying, you know what, I'm not happy with what's being offered in mediation, and I need to go the next step to get what I want. I want, you know, everything that I feel I deserve. Well, then you have to go to court, and you either have to try your case to a jury or to a judge, or you need to go to arbitration, which is a creature of contract. Only if your contract provides that the parties have agreed to arbitrate will that be your venue, unless in the middle of this dispute you can get the other side to agree to do it that way.
You know, and what are you seeing? What are some of the things, I guess, from a commercial litigation perspective? I mean, a lot of times we know out there, we've seen these big areas, asbestos, for example. I'm just using different things that we've seen in the industry, you know, over a period of time. You know, what is the big thing that individuals are really going through today, and what might be something coming up in the future that, you know, is sort of the hot buttons or hot topics or areas of interest for everybody?
Well, I'll start with the practical, and then I'll move to the more sophisticated. The practical disputes that individuals and small companies face on a day-to-day basis are I had a joint venture. I don't feel like my joint venture partner is living up to the agreement that we made, whether it be oral or in writing, and that's the dispute I have. Or I'm an investor in a company where it's closely held, it's not publicly traded, and I feel like the people who are controlling the company are not running it fairly. They're running it for their own interest. They're not paying me dividends. I've got this investment, but I'm not getting any benefit from holding the investment because I feel like the people running the company are, working in their self-interest. So the only way that you can get out of that situation if you can't negotiate a resolution is to bring a lawsuit. So those are some of the vanilla, a company will purchase an asset from somebody else and then feel like the asset wasn't what was represented, and so they have to go sue the seller because they say, you misrepresented the nature of this or you committed fraud. Those are vanilla examples of litigation disputes that come out of the commercial context. In terms of the latter part of your question regarding what are the hot trends and the new things happening, one that is obviously occurring here in Houston because of the decline in the oil and gas industry is that companies are unable to meet their obligations, and so contracts are being breached. Some companies are going into bankruptcy. Foreclosures are happening. Disputes are arising out of mergers and acquisitions that occurred a year ago. Whenever the market changes and someone loses as a result of that market change, there's often litigation that results because people feel like it was more than just the market. It was, misrepresented to them previously. The other hot area is that in the key tom litigation world, which is where an individual works for a company, knows that the company is doing something wrong that results in the government paying money that they shouldn't, has tried to tell the company to not violate the law and be good and stand up, and the company's not listening, that individual can go hire a lawyer and file what's called a key tom case, which is sometimes referred to as whistleblower cases, where the individual says, look, I know, for example, this pharmaceutical company that I'm working for, they are doing X, Y, and Z, which is resulting in Medicare fraud, and it's costing the government $1 billion. And so I'm basically telling on them because if the government recovers $1 billion, I get 20 to 25% of that as the quote king's ransom for bringing the key tom case. So those cases
and the whistleblower
are really
is a big thing nowadays. Obviously, that's one of the things we've spoken about.
It is because of the healthcare fraud, and there's so much money and there's so much complexity. That area of key tom litigation has really exploded in the past few years.
And Erica, I could talk about this all day because I am so much interested in law and the opportunity for individuals to do stuff. But unfortunately, we are coming up against time in this show. How can we reach you if you don't mind?
You can always call me here at Sussman Godfrey, 713-653-7810. Thank you very much for having me on.
That is Erica Harris with Sussman Godfrey, 713-653-7810. Erica, thank you very much for being on The Price of Business this morning.
Thank you for having me.
For all those listening, it's been another great show in the books. Until next time, we are out.